They say everyone loved the angel, but that's a lie. You see, Horus wanted to be him, Curze wanted to break him, and Mortarion wanted to execute him. The traitor Primarchs didn't hate Sanguinius because of his mistakes. In fact, he didn't make any. They hated him because Sanguinius was the golden child who made the rest of them look like mentally unstable brats. They were just jealous. He didn't just exist. He was a mirror that forced his brothers to confront their own flaws every time he entered a room. Sanguinius wasn't built different. The rest of them were just built broken. So, who were these jealous brats? Out of all the Emperor's 20 demigod man-children, Horus Lupercal and Sanguinius were the ultimate besties. They were tight as shit, spending decades slaughtering Xenos side by side before the rest of the Primarch losers were even found. But beneath the high fives and martial glory, Horus was already rotting from the inside out, poisoned by imposter syndrome and petty-ass jealousy. Let's be real, Sanguinius had the brains, the brawn, and, most unforgivably, a full head of silky, luscious hair. When Big E decided to peace out back to Terra to play with his secret webway project, he tossed Horus the title of War Master. Fabulous Hawkboy was the ultimate bro about it, literally showing up to Horus's room just to hype him up and say, "You got this." Inwardly, however, Horus was spiraling. He was convinced his dad had clicked the wrong button and that Sanguinius was the actual gigachad meant for the job. Horus basically cried about it, acutely aware that the angel was objectively the better man. When Horus finally fell to chaos, that jealousy turned deadly. He figured out that the Chaos Gods actually wanted Sanguinius as their champion, and if they managed to corrupt the great angel, Horus knew they'd toss his bald ass straight into the garbage. Terrified of being replaced by his prettier best friend, Horus decided Sanguinius had to die just to keep him from being replaced. Ultimately, Horus thought both Big E and the Chaos Gods never really wanted him as CEO. He was just the pity hire because Sanguinius didn't want either position. So, in the end, Hawkboy was murdered. And really, it was all because the War Master was unimaginably jelly. Unlike other Primarchs, Lorgar's issue with Sanguinius wasn't jealousy, but a deep philosophical frustration. You see, Sanguinius' existence was a living contradiction. The Emperor had brutally spanked Lorgar for his religiousness, nuking his favorite city just to enforce his atheist beliefs. Yet, in the middle of this supposedly atheist empire, Big E had custom-engineered Sanguinius, a literal, majestic, and glorious angel. And this angel naturally inspired the very worship the Emperor had outlawed. To Lorgar, the Hawkboy was a walking, breathing paradox. He effortlessly inspired the exact same religious worship that Lorgar had been brutally punished for, and for that, he hated him. If Lorgar's resentment was born from being a little bitch, then Perturbo's hatred was due to an inferiority complex. The Lord of Iron wasn't just bitter, he was the master of holding a grudge. Despite being a certified 5D chess-playing super genius who just wanted to build sick museums and mansions, Big E handed him a rusty shovel and made him the Imperium's designated garbage man. While the other Primarchs were out taking Instagram selfies and hoarding all the glory, Peter Turbo and his boys were assigned the absolute shittiest, most grueling siege battles ever. Even worse, Sanguinius was actively encouraged to foster art, philosophy, and high culture. Perturbo secretly wanted to do that exact same shit, but he was way too damn proud and emotionally stunted to use his big boy words and just ask his dad for a paintbrush. But Peter Turbo's greatest tragedy was his toxic mindset. His severe victim complex blinded him too much to realize Sanguinius was actually just a genuinely nice guy. If Peter Turbo had ever reached out to Sanguinius, he would have gladly built a Legos with him. Curze hated Sanguinius because his very existence proved his way of doing things were wrong. You see, both Primarchs were the only two cursed with the ability to see the future, but how they handled these psychic spoilers were way different. Conrad Kurtz's psychic crystal ball only ever showed him the galaxy's absolute worst-case scenarios, and his brain convinced him that this misery was 100% locked in. By pretending destiny made him do it, he didn't have to take responsibility for turning his entire legion into sadistic maniacs. Sanguinius, on the other hand, saw branching timelines and completely rejected that emo bullshit. Even knowing he was destined to get his shit rocked by Horus, Hawkboy still believed in free will. He woke up every day and chose to be a glorious, winged giga-chad fighting for humanity anyway. Sanguinius showed that seeing a dark, terrible future didn't force you to become a monster. By remaining noble, he proved that Curze's cruelties were his own deliberate, evil choices, not the unavoidable will of the universe. Angron's raging hate boner for Sanguinius basically boiled down to jealousy and self-loathing. Firstly, their spawn points were unfair. While Sanguinius conquered a radioactive hellscape and got worshipped as a flawless golden god, Angron got dumped into a gladiator pit and had USB cables, aka the butcher's nails, installed directly into his brainstem. It turned his entire existence into a 24/7 migraine that only went away when he was actively killing people. To make matters worse, the Imperium gave Sanguinius the sick-ass title of the Angel, while slapping Angron with the Timu knockoff name of the Red Angel. Angron was salty as fuck about being treated like a cheap bootleg Primarch, forced to live in the shadow of Hawkboy's pristine majesty. Sanguinius was everything Angron was not, loved, beautiful, and in control, highlighting Angron's own self-loathing. This jealousy all culminated at the Eternity Gate during the Siege of Terra. By this point, Angron had become a demon Primarch, and Sanguinius was trying to hold him off. Desperate to stop Angron, he finally stopped holding back and unleashed his own genetic curse, the vampiric fury of the Red Thirst. As they fought, Angron realized he was jealous. He understood that Sanguinius's wrath was actually pure. The great angel was choosing to unleash his inner monster out of his own free will to protect the innocent. Meanwhile, Angron's own rage was just pathetic by comparison. He was basically raging over being the galaxy's biggest cuck his entire life. His anger was entirely selfish, reactive, and enslaved to his masters. Eventually, Hawkboy wins and banishes Angron back to the Shadow Realm. Mortarion's hatred for Sanguinius basically boiled down to him being a massive racist. Morty's prejudice came from getting traumatized on the planet of Barbarous, which left him violently xenophobic against the warp and anybody with a mutation. For example, someone with wings. Mortarion found it hypocritical that Big E was executing some random mom for having 3 eyes, but the second the fabulous Hawkboy struts in, everyone drops to their knees to worship this divine angel. To Mortarion, Sanguinius was just a warp chicken who embodied every single fucking thing the Imperium was supposedly trying to violently exterminate. On top of that, Morty had spawn point envy, just like Angron. He lumped Sanguinius right in with pampered, artsy-fartsy little bitches like Fulgrim, who got lucky with their childhoods. While Sanguinius was busy frolicking in art and philosophy, Morty spent his youth literally breathing poison to survive. As a result, he resented anyone who didn't eat shit for a living. The Lion also had a little secret beef with Sanguinius. When the Ruin Storm cut off Ultramar from Terra, Robbie G and the Lion mashed the panic button. They frantically duct-taped together a discount backup empire called Imperium Secundus, because they were thoroughly convinced Big E was already dead. Despite both of these absolute control freaks having huge egos, neither had the balls to actually claim the title of Emperor. Instead, they shoved the crown onto Sanguinius. They knew the winged fucker was so universally liked by the galaxy that he was literally the only Primarch who could sit on the shiny chair without instantly triggering a civil war. Deep down, though, the Lion was practically choking on his own jealousy. He spent his entire existence convinced he was the most qualified choice to be War Master, and it annoyed him having to play second fiddle to a giant mutant pigeon. The remainder of the Primarchs didn't really have anything against Sanguinius. So yeah, most of the traitor Primarchs, plus the Lion, despised Sanguinius for his very existence as it's invalidated their excuses. He was flying proof that all the other Primarchs who bitched, moaned, and burned down the galaxy were just emotionally fragile little shits who couldn't handle their own baggage. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you think Sanguinius was despised, just imagine how much Roboute Guilliman was hated. Click the video on the right to watch.